You've probably heard people here and there talk about everything being interconnected. Maybe you found this a little bit too spiritual, a bit too woo-woo. In this video, I'm going to break that down and show you that it's perhaps not such a crazy way to think. Hello, I'm Fraser. Welcome to the channel. Here I talk about different ideas, different perspectives that you can adopt to help yourself flourish. Some of these ideas are more scientific, some are more rational, some are more spiritual. But if you approach them with an open mind, hopefully you can go away with something afterward that will help you see the world a little bit differently. Today we're going to look at the topic of dependent origination, also known as dependent arising or interbeing, an important concept in Buddhism. In a nutshell, it's about the existence of anything cannot be separated from anything else. All phenomena arise from other phenomena. John Muir has a wonderful quote about this. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. Imagine that you decide to make yourself a cup of tea. You go to the cupboard, you grab a tea bag, you take the kettle, you fill the kettle up with some water, you put the kettle on the stove. The electricity or gas heat the kettle, and you pour the boiling water into the cup with tea. Finally, as the tea brews and it just cools down, you're able to take a sip of that tea. Where did the tea actually come from? Probably came from overseas somewhere. It was probably a plane or a truck that brought that tea to you. It was picked by someone, and that person picking had a whole life, whole family that they were loved by. They had their own life stories. How did they get into tea picking? Was it something that their grandparents maybe started or their parents started? This simple example of the tea quickly becomes much vaster than you or I can imagine. The experience of drinking tea is only possible because of all these preceding events. In fact, even planet Earth, even the universe had to be created for you to experience the tea in this moment. Dependent origination recognizes this process of connecting everything. Conditions lead to the arising of phenomena. The sun, rain, soil, and seed came together to produce this tea plant. Craving or aversion to bodily sensation, recognized as thirstiness or boredom or feeling a little bit cold, led to the action to brew the tea in the first place. Systems thinking is a holistic way of seeing the universe. It recognizes the causal relationships between parts instead of treating each part as isolated and separate from the larger whole. Let's take a system that seems simple to begin with. In this case, an ecosystem, the life cycle of an oak tree. An acorn, the seed of a great oak, makes its way into the soil. A set of conditions come together, encouraging the seed to germinate. Roots come out of the seed in pursuit of nutrients and water. Leaves sprout and the plant begins to photosynthesize, converting sunlight and carbon dioxide into energy. The little tree grows with this energy, becoming a mighty oak tree, and after about 40 years, eventually starts producing its own acorns. This system shows that from certain conditions, other elements emerge. That is to say, when certain phenomena come into contact, other phenomena arise. The conditions of seed, nutrients, water, and sunlight come together to produce that mighty oak tree. And this is just one level of the system. We can in turn take each of the elements and see which factors they are also dependent on. Where does the water come from? Well, it came from a cloud, and before that, a river or the sea. And where does the sunlight come from? From the sun, of course, over 150 million kilometers away. Where do the nutrients come from? Well, they come from old decomposed trees on the bed of the forest floor. And where did the seed come from? It came from its parent trees, pollen carried by the wind from one tree to another. And now you cannot separate the oak tree from the sun, the clouds, the wind, even the previous trees that were in this forest. In systems theory, where we draw the boundary is very important. It defines the edge of the system we're looking at. Without it, we're pulling at a very, very long thread, defining condition after condition after condition. We could draw the boundary at the oak tree level. We could zoom right in and look at the cellular and molecular processes that are going on. At each level of the system is great complexity and interaction. As you zoom into the object, the boundaries of that object become blurry. The same happens when you step back and zoom out. The system here is of a fractal nature. I plan on making a video specifically on systems theory in the future, so if that's interesting for you, please subscribe to the channel. This idea of emergence and phenomena arising from when other phenomena meet doesn't just stop at the physical world. The wonderful taste of chocolate arises when you have chocolate on your tongue. And from that, thoughts, emotions, memories may arise too. And they're arising in the mind, not in the physical world, of course. And from those memories, thoughts, and emotions, perhaps actions and reactions occur, cravings and aversions occur. Phenomena are sustained as long as the conditions remain. Remove the chocolate and the taste disappears. Buddhist teachings go further than this. The 12 links of dependent origination provide a rigorous assessment of the codependent processes operating in the mind. The 12 links can be viewed at two levels: moment to moment, affecting cognition, and lifetimes to lifetimes, affecting the rebirth and entry to samsara. For the purposes of this video, I'll explain them on a moment-to-moment level. You can think of the 12 links as a sort of map, showing how when our conditioning meets reality, reaction is produced. The map starts with ignorance of reality, not understanding and not seeing how nature really is, and ends with the inevitable decay and death before rebirth. The first of the 12 links is ignorance. And ignorance is about being ignorant of the nature of reality, the way things actually are. It's ignorance of the noble truths and its ultimate illusion. And through ignorance, good and bad deeds are performed. The fabrications level is about fabrications that have cemented over time. They are ultimately our ingrained patterns. And at this stage, there's an emergence of a sense of duality. Consciousness is about a base awareness of the 6 senses. These are eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Notice how there are 6 senses there compared with the usual 5 senses that we adopt in the modern Western world. This is not a general level of consciousness. This is very base awareness. This isn't even understanding that the eye, ear, nose, and tongue exist at this point. The name and form level is where there is an illusion of an individual formed. A sense of self is created, and thus separation is created from the greater whole. At the sense organs and objects level, there's a base sensation that arises. In order to sense perceptions at all, in order to be in the world and perceive what's going on, there obviously has to be a body there. And so that is where these sense organs come into play: the ears, eyes, nose, for example, skin, etc. The contact stage is where mind meets object. This is where the sense door, the object, and the consciousness all meet. You don't know what you're looking at yet, but you do need contact between the organ of the sense and the object of sense. There also has to be consciousness there for the body to see. For example, light can hit the eyeball, but it doesn't mean you're seeing anything. Different animals also see things differently. An animal that is not a human might see different wavelengths of light. From the human perspective, we say those things don't exist. At the feeling stage, we pick up on pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral sensations. Note that this is not emotion, it is perception. We are recognizing and experiencing the preceding sense impressions. At this stage, you recognize the object. At the craving and aversion stage, this is when you notice I like it or I don't like it, based on the feeling that came up. We are pushed and pulled around by these desires and aversions. It is at the attachment stage where you hold on to your sensual pleasures, appearances, your favorite thoughts and ways of viewing, including the illusion of self and ego. At the becoming stage, a connection between the ego and the experience is defined. At the birth stage, this can be viewed as some kind of action or reaction, movement, speaking, substantial thought, and the real sense of ego is formed here. And finally, the link of suffering. I've interpreted this in 2 ways. Firstly, there is a continual process of aging, and that just kind of sucks. And secondly, as we've passed through the previous links, if we're still not seeing reality truly as it is, there will be some aspect of suffering. Understanding each of these links leads to nibbana, liberation from rebirth. It's worth saying too that although this looks linear, it doesn't always work that way, and some aspects may be cyclical in nature. That's all great and all, But without an explicit example, it's hard to put in play and see how it works in action. So take this situation. You're talking to someone new and an awkward pause comes up in the conversation, something I'm sure we can all relate to. How can we interpret the 12 links to show what is happening there? Your sense organs, ears in this case, are picking up sound. That becomes sensation in the body. Your mind translates that sound into language. You work out that someone must be speaking to you and you piece together what their point is. In the next moment, your senses don't pick up any sound. The mind recognizes there is a pause in the conversation. A few seconds pass. Your senses continue to not pick up any sound. Your eyes recognize another set of eyes looking back. An unpleasant sensation arises, anxiety. This pause is now officially an awkward pause. I don't like it. You feel aversion towards it, you want something to change. Then a reaction comes. You react by filling the pause. You turn the next thoughts into your mind, into language, and then into sound. The unpleasant sensation goes away. You relax, that feels better. And your ingrained patterns are reinforced. So that's dependent origination, or at least my take on it. We've looked at how the physical world arises from conditions and how that affects the mind. We've looked at the 12 links and seen how phenomena cause other phenomena to arise. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. We're a brand new channel and I'd love for you to be along for the ride. So thank you for watching and hope to see you soon.